Have you ever trusted a K9 dog more than your own instincts? Imagine standing in the heart of a crowded mall when suddenly a K9 dog locks onto a baby stroller and refuses to let go. Shoppers grow restless. Security steps in. A mother demands answers. But when the blanket is finally pulled back, what's revealed leaves an entire crowd in stunned, tearful silence. Before we dive into this unforgettable story, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? If you believe in the extraordinary bond between humans and dogs, feel free to subscribe to our channel. No pressure, just presence. Your voice matters here. Star. The polished floors of Ashmere Promenade gleamed under the lazy spill of afternoon sun, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Families weaved between storefronts, strollers squeaked, and distant laughter from the food court melted into the buzz of weekend life. Among them moved Elira Wren, shoulders steady, gaze focused, her fingers brushing lightly against the specialized harness of Ace, the black and tan canine dog walking in perfect sync at her side. No wasted motion, no hesitation. They were a single breathing entity moving through the current of humanity. Ace's amber eyes flicked upward now and then, checking her, anchoring her. The subtle gesture was invisible to the rushing world, but to Elira, it was everything. The world didn't see the battles she fought behind her calm exterior. They didn't hear the echoes from Kandahar, the screams, the sand, the blood-soaked dusk. They only saw a woman with a service dog, blending into the tapestry of the mall. But blending had never been the goal. Surviving was. And today felt almost normal. Synthetic pine garlands curled around balcony railings above, ornaments catching the light like captured stars. Somewhere overhead, an out-of-tune piano rendition of Winter Wonderland stumbled through the speakers. Elira adjusted her grip on the harness. Ace matched the shift without missing a beat. They moved past a cluster of teenagers taking selfies, past the perfume counters radiating invisible clouds of headache. Just a few more errands, just a few more breaths, then back to the safety of silence. Neither of them knew, yet, that before this day ended, the crowd around them would cry. That trust, once again, would mean the difference between life and loss. Elira adjusted the strap of her tote bag as they neared the central court, a circular expanse crowned by a marble fountain where tired shoppers caught their breath. Ace shifted slightly against her leg, a near imperceptible adjustment, but to Elira, it was a whisper in a language only they spoke. Easy, buddy. Almost there. The plan was simple. Weave past the crowd, duck into the bookstore on the other side, and escape before the early evening rush turned the mall into a wall of noise and elbows. But as they threaded through the thinning crowd, Ace's posture changed again. This time sharper, focused. Elira felt the shift like a ripple across her skin. She followed his gaze instinctively, toward a navy blue stroller parked near a stone bench. A woman rummaged through shopping bags, oblivious. The stroller itself seemed ordinary, almost too ordinary beneath the festive chaos around them. A light blanket, patterned with cartoon elephants, covered the small form inside. Ace's ears pricked forward, body stiffening. Elira's stomach knotted. She gave the harness a subtle tug, a test. Ace resisted, muscles locked, gaze unwavering on the stroller. The noise of the mall seemed to recede, sucked into a tunnel of silence around them. Shoppers moved past, oblivious, laughing, browsing. But Ace stood frozen, breathing shallow, reading something in the air that no human could smell, no machine could measure. Elira whispered almost inaudibly, "What is it, boy?" Ace answered not with a bark, but with stillness, the kind of stillness that screams. Elira's heart ticked faster. Ace had never frozen like this without reason. She gave another gentle tug, this time firmer. Ace refused to budge. Instead, he let out a sound Elira hadn't heard in months. A low, barely audible whine vibrating through his chest. Not fear, not aggression. Warning. Elira's pulse spiked. Something's wrong. Very wrong. Without thinking, she adjusted their angle, positioning herself between Ace and the stroller, shielding instinctively. The woman with the shopping bags finally noticed them, her brow furrowed, irritation flaring in her expression. "Is there a problem with your dog?" she asked sharply, pulling the stroller closer. Before Illyra could answer, Ace stepped forward, breaking heel position for the first time in 3 years of working side by side. A sharp bark exploded from his throat, slicing through the mall's background noise like a blade. Heads turned, shoppers paused mid-step, whispers ignited. Illyra's cheeks burned under the sudden scrutiny. She could feel the judgment, the unspoken assumption, a service dog out of control. She tightened her grip on the harness. "Ace, heel!" she commanded under her breath. Ace obeyed, but his body trembled with restrained urgency. His gaze never left the stroller. The woman scoffed, shaking her head. "Control your animal, please. You're scaring my baby." But Illyra wasn't listening to her words. She was listening to Ace, and every cell in his body was screaming, "Something's wrong." Illyra inhaled deeply, steadying herself. She would trust him, even if no one else did. Security appeared before Illyra could respond. Two guards cutting through the growing crowd with brisk, rehearsed authority. Their navy uniforms stood out against the festive mall chaos. Serious faces trained to see disruption, not the deeper things beneath. "Ma'am," the older guard said, his badge flashing under the skylights, "we've had a complaint about your service animal causing a disturbance." Disturbance. The word felt like a slap. Ace barked again, sharp, urgent, refusing to be silenced. The younger guard, a woman barely out of academy training, shifted uneasily. Her gaze darted between Ace, the stroller, and the restless faces gathering like a rising tide. "I'm sorry," Illyra said, voice even but tight, "but my K9 dog is trained for medical alerts. He's signaling something serious." The mother of the stroller snorted. "He's scaring my child. He's aggressive." But her child hadn't moved. Not once. Ace planted his feet, head low, body rigid, barking now in a distinct pattern Illyra knew by heart. 3 sharp barks, a paw to the ground. Medical alert. Real. Urgent. "Now, your baby should have woken up by now," Illyra said quietly, her voice threading through the chaos like a blade. "Something's wrong. Please, check her." The mother hesitated, pride warring with instinct. Security shifted, uncertain, caught between policy and a growing sense of dread. Ace barked once more, louder this time, then whined, a heart-deep, soul-pulling sound. Not defiance, not disobedience, desperation. Illyra knelt beside him, hand firm against his trembling shoulder. "I'm with you, boy," she whispered, no matter what came next. The mother hesitated, fingers twitching at the stroller's handle. Illyra held her breath. Ace stood quivering beside her, the world narrowing to a single point, that tiny bundle under the cartoon elephant blanket. Around them, murmurs grew. Shoppers shifted from irritation to unease. The younger security guard took a careful step forward. "Ma'am," she said, voice softer now. "Please, just check." For a moment, pride still held the mother in place. Then instinct, deeper, older than anger, broke through. With shaking hands, she pulled back the blanket. The gasp that tore from her chest silenced the entire promenade. The baby lay unnaturally still, tiny face tinged with a ghostly blue. Breath shallow, almost imperceptible. "No! No, Madison!" the mother cried, scooping her child into trembling arms. "Wake up, sweetheart! Please!" Panic rippled outward, cracking the frozen crowd into motion. Phones lifted. Security radios crackled. Illyra was already moving, fast, calm, instincts from another life taking over. "I'm a former medic," she said, kneeling swiftly beside the mother. "Let me help." Ace stayed pressed against her side, a black and tan anchor against the rising tide of chaos. Illyra's fingers checked vitals with a precision carved from combat and grief. Pulse. Slow. Breathing. Faint. She looked up, locking eyes with the mother, with security, with the gathering crowd. "This child needs oxygen. Now." The urgency in her voice snapped the guards into action. dispatching paramedics with trembling hands. And all the while, Ace remained vigilant, the only one who had seen the storm coming before anyone else even noticed the clouds. The first paramedics burst through the crowd, their gurney rattling over the polished tiles. A woman in navy scrubs, barely 25, crouched beside Elira in one fluid motion. "What happened?" she asked, pulling a tiny oxygen mask from her kit. "Possible neurological event," Elira replied without hesitation. Voice low, clipped. Pulse slow, breathing shallow, child unresponsive for unknown duration. The paramedic's hands moved fast, precise. Oxygen flowed into the infant's fragile lungs. Ace shifted closer, his body tense, eyes locked on Madison as if sheer will alone could keep her tethered to this world. Elira stayed kneeling, steady, centered, her hand brushing the dog's harness for both their sake. "Stay here. Stay sharp." The lead EMT called for the pediatric unit over his radio. A different tone in his voice now. Urgent. No longer routine. "She's stabilizing slightly," the young paramedic murmured, relief flashing across her face. But it wasn't enough. They needed to move. Now. "Let's go," the EMT barked. In a flurry of efficient movements, Madison was secured onto the gurney, IV lines trailing like lifelines behind her. The mother, Amber, someone murmured, stumbled after them, sobbing, one hand never leaving her daughter's tiny foot. As the stretcher disappeared into the crowd, Ace let out a soft, broken whine. It wasn't over yet. Elira rose slowly, knees aching, heart heavier than she dared admit. The mall noise returned like a flood. Too loud, too normal, pressing against the rawness of what had just unfolded. Ace leaned into her leg, grounding her. A living reminder that instincts, once trusted, could change the course of fate. And sometimes, they already had. The gurney vanished through the sliding glass doors, swallowed by flashing red lights beyond. For a moment, the world stood still. Elira exhaled, slow, measured, trying to let the tension bleed out of her muscles. But Ace didn't relax. He remained braced, nose lifted slightly, nostrils flaring against the sterile mall air. Still searching. Still warning. Elira's gut twisted. This wasn't over. Not yet. Security tried to disperse the crowd, voices strained with forced calm. Shoppers shuffled backward in clusters, half curious, half afraid. "Thank you for your cooperation," one guard announced over the low hum of static, but no one really moved. The mother, Amber, stood frozen near the benches, clutching the empty stroller like a lifeline. Her face was a ruin of fear and guilt. Elira approached carefully, Ace pressed to her side. "You saved her," Amber whispered hoarsely. "You and your dog." Ace gave a soft, almost imperceptible huff, the barest acknowledgement. Elira opened her mouth to reassure the woman, to say something and anything. But Ace turned sharply, toward the stroller, a new alert vibrating through his whole frame. Elira's breath caught. Ace began pawing insistently at a side pocket of the diaper bag still hanging from the handle. The same deep, rhythmic pattern he used for scent detection. Not for people, not for stress, for substances. Elira's heart slammed against her ribs. What else had they missed? Elira knelt beside the stroller, heart hammering, as Ace's nose pressed insistently against the side pocket. Amber hovered a few feet away, frozen in place. Her knuckles were white where they gripped the empty stroller handle. "May I?" Elira asked, voice low, steady. Amber nodded, mute, eyes wide with a dawning terror she could no longer deny. Elira carefully unzipped the pocket. Inside, tucked between a crumpled burp cloth in a half-empty snack pouch, sat a small medicine bottle. Infant acetaminophen, ordinary, harmless, at first glance. But Ace's reaction told another story. He sniffed once, then recoiled slightly, whining deep in his throat. A sound Elira had only heard twice before. Both times had ended in ambulance rides. She turned the bottle in her hand. The safety seal was broken, barely noticeable unless you looked closely. Elira's mind raced. Contamination, tampering. Something inside this bottle didn't belong. A security guard stepped closer, noting her expression. "What's wrong?" Elira straightened slowly, holding the bottle like evidence. "I need this secured immediately," she said. "No one touches it without gloves." The air around them shifted, as if everyone finally realized the danger hadn't passed. It had just been hiding better. Amber's voice cracked. "I don't understand. I didn't—" Her words dissolved into a sob. Neither did Elira, but Ace had understood. Long before any human had. And now the question that loomed over all of them was no longer what had happened. It was who had made it happen. The bottle was sealed inside an evidence bag within minutes. Gloves, photographs, chain of custody. Procedures Elira hadn't touched since her military days came rushing back like muscle memory. Ace circled once beside her, restless, then sat back on his haunches, eyes still locked on the stroller. The danger hadn't fully passed. It was shifting, morphing. Detective Marlowe, a tall woman with steel-gray hair and watchful eyes, arrived on the scene, flashing her badge to the rattled mall security. She took one look at Ace's behavior, the gathered crowd, the weeping mother, and understood. Instinct faster than protocol. "What do we have?" she asked briskly. Elira briefed her in short, clipped sentences. Ace's alert, the infant's condition, the broken safety seal. Marlowe's expression darkened. "Tampering suspected. Possible assault on a minor." The words felt heavy, brutal, hanging in the air. Amber sobbed harder, clutching her arms around herself as if to hold her world together. "I swear," she gasped. "I don't know how. I never." She was just sleeping. Elira wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe the world didn't have shadows dark enough to hide something like this in a diaper bag. But Ace's unwavering posture told another truth. Marlowe nodded sharply at a forensics tech arriving with a second evidence kit. "Search everything: bag, stroller, shopping receipts, security footage. Assume nothing." The real storm, the one Ace had sensed all along, was just beginning. And this time, no one could claim they hadn't been warned. The forensic tech finished dusting the stroller frame, frown deepening with every sweep of his gloved hands. "Ma'am," he called to Detective Marlowe, "you need to see this." Marlowe strode over, Elira following instinctively, Ace at her side, a black and tan shadow of tension. The tech lifted a hidden latch under the stroller seat, revealing a narrow compartment, and inside a second bottle. No label, no markings, just a faint chemical scent that made Ace recoil instantly, letting out a low, guttural growl. Elira's stomach dropped. Marlowe's face hardened. "Bag it, carefully." The realization hit like a punch. This wasn't accidental, not negligence. This was deliberate. Someone had hidden a substance inches from a sleeping child, banking on no one noticing, no one caring enough to look closer, except for a dog, except for trust forged through fire and brokenness, and 1,000 silent battles Elira and Ace had fought long before this day. Amber sagged onto the bench, sobs ripping through her body. Who would do this? The question tore through the tense air, but no one had an answer. Not yet. Marlowe straightened, already pulling her phone to escalate the case to special crimes. Elira crouched beside Ace, her fingers weaving into his fur. "You saw it," she whispered, "before any of us even dreamed to look." Ace leaned into her, solid, unshakable. The mall's bright lights flickered overhead, oblivious to how close darkness had crept in and how one service dog had stood, alone, between life and the abyss. The crowd had thinned now, a ripple of whispers trailing out toward the exits. But the center of the mall remained a frozen battlefield, a place where innocence had almost been stolen, unseen. Detective Marlowe finished her call, face grim. "Special Crimes is inbound. We're treating this as a targeted poisoning." Amber sat crumpled on the bench, her body rocking slightly. She clutched a pink baby blanket to her chest, the last thread tying her to the daughter she couldn't protect. Elira stayed close, Ace pressed firm against her side. Neither moved, neither spoke. There was nothing to say yet, only truths unfolding like slow, inevitable avalanches. Marlowe knelt before Amber, voice gentler now. Mrs. Parker, I need to ask, has anyone had unusual access to your daughter recently? Amber wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trembling. No, no, we were just shopping. Birthday gifts. Her voice cracked. Only at the daycare last week, and her babysitter. But, but they love Madison. They would never. She broke off, choking on a sob that seemed to hollow her out from the inside. Marlowe's eyes sharpened. A detail. A crack. Babysitter's name? She asked quietly. Amber shivered, as if the name itself hurt. Chloe. Chloe Vance. Elira caught the flicker in Marlowe's gaze. Quick, sharp. Names mattered. Connections mattered. Somewhere threads were weaving together in the dark, and they were about to pull. Ace nudged Elira's hand gently, grounding her again. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. Marlowe rose slowly, her face unreadable, but her posture had sharpened. Something about the babysitter's name set alarms ringing. We'll run Chloe Vance through the system immediately, she said, already signaling an officer to step aside for a private call. Elira stayed rooted, one hand loosely tangled in Ace's thick fur. She could feel it, the shift in the air, a gathering storm, heavier than before. Across the court, mall security rewound footage from earlier that day. A grainy screen flickered to life, stuttering images of strollers, shoppers, glints of tinsel. And there, barely visible, a young woman hovering too long near Amber's stroller when her back was turned. Dark hoodie, ponytail tucked under a cap. Not Amber, not a passerby. Someone watching, waiting. Marlowe leaned in, her mouth tightening. That's not Mrs. Parker. The second bottle, the tampered medication, the unexplainable access. It wasn't negligence, it was orchestration, and Elira understood, chillingly, that Madison hadn't been a random target. Ace's muscles tightened under her hand, a silent confirmation. They weren't dealing with an accident. They were standing in the aftermath of intent. Marlowe snapped orders, pulling two uniformed officers toward the exits. The hunt had begun. Ace watched them go, his body thrumming with contained tension. Elira whispered beneath her breath, words not for anyone but him. We're not done yet, are we? Ace shifted closer, his steady weight anchoring her against the rising tide of what was still to come. The radio crackled, sharp, urgent. Suspect spotted, west exit, moving fast. Marlowe didn't hesitate. Go! Two officers sprinted across the mall, weaving through startled shoppers. Their radios barked updates, each second more frantic than the last. Elira's pulse kicked up, matching the urgency crackling in the air. Ace surged forward at her side, muscles taut, reading the shift without a word spoken. Across the food court, a figure broke into a run. Dark hoodie, pale hands clutching a backpack too tightly. A girl, no older than 20. The suspect. Elira didn't think. She moved. Ace! Track! She commanded, voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. The K9 dog exploded into motion. Every fiber tuned to the chase, the scent, the threat. They tore through the crowd, past dropped shopping bags and stunned faces. Ace pulling her forward with relentless precision. The girl glanced back once, panic flashing across her face. Wrong move. Ace adjusted instantly, angling to cut her off. Faster, lower, relentless. The world blurred. Holiday lights, blurred faces, the pounding rhythm of pursuit. Elira felt it, deep in her bones. This wasn't just about catching someone. It was about justice, about trust, about everything Ace had been trying to warn them about since the first bark. The girl darted toward the parking garage, desperation twisting her movements. Ace barked once, sharp, decisive, the sound cutting the heavy mall air like a gunshot. And Elira knew. They were close, very close. The parking garage swallowed the girl. Concrete walls, harsh echoes, shadows stretching long. Ace didn't slow. Neither did Elira. Their footsteps pounded against the ramp. Their breathing synced. A rhythm forged from countless drills and trust so deep it was almost instinct. The girl glanced back. Once. Ace surged forward, teeth bared in a low, vibrating growl. No hesitation. "Stop!" An officer shouted from behind, voice ricocheting through the cavernous space. The girl flinched, stumbled. Ace closed the distance like a living arrow. Elora tightened her grip. Ready. 20 feet. 10. 5. Ace launched. Powerful, precise, clamping his jaws gently but unyieldingly onto the backpack strap instead of the girl herself. It yanked her backward, off balance, crashing her onto the concrete with a choked cry. Officers swarmed seconds later, pinning her down, hands cuffing wrists that still tried weakly to fight. Elora skidded to a halt, chest heaving. Ace still locked in perfect control, waiting for her next word. "Release," she commanded softly. Ace obeyed instantly, retreating to her side, panting, eyes never leaving the suspect. The girl, Chloe, lay trembling under the fluorescent lights, her cap knocked askew, her eyes wide and wild. And Elira saw it. The guilt, the terror, the unraveling of whatever stories she thought she could outrun. Somewhere behind them, mall security alarms still shrieked. Somewhere beyond that, a mother clutched an empty stroller, praying. Elira knelt, resting one hand on Ace's neck. "You found her," she whispered. "You always do." In the sterile interview room, Chloe sat hunched over the metal table, wrists cuffed, shoulders quaking under invisible weight. Across from her, Detective Marlowe leaned forward, voice low, steady. "You had access to Madison. You were near the stroller. Why?" Chloe's lip trembled. She stared at her hand, then at the floor. Silent. Marlowe didn't press. Not yet. She waited. Outside the one-way glass, Elira stood with Ace, watching, feeling the tension coil tighter with every second that ticked by. Finally, Chloe cracked. "It wasn't supposed to hurt her," she whispered, voice barely audible. I wanted Amber to suffer." The words hit the air like a gunshot. Elira stiffened. Marlowe's gaze didn't waver. "Go on!" Tears streaked Chloe's face, but they didn't slow her unraveling. "Amber, she got me fired from the daycare. Said I was careless. Said I left a gate open. I lost everything." Her voice cracked. Rage and grief tangled into something poisonous. "I just wanted her to panic, to feel helpless, like I did." "You drugged a child," Marlowe said, soft but devastating. Chloe folded into herself, wrecked by her own confession. Outside, Elira closed her eyes for a moment, the sheer weight of it pressing down. This wasn't random. It was personal. It was hate, wearing the face of heartbreak. Beside her, Ace leaned gently against her leg, grounding her. Always grounding her. Some battles, she realized, weren't fought with noise and fury. Some battles were fought just by standing and refusing to look away. The night had fallen by the time Elira stepped out of the precinct, cool air brushing against her face like a balm. Ace padded beside her, head high, tail low, steady as ever. Across the parking lot, Amber waited near a parked car, clutching Madison in her arms. The little girl, cheeks pink now, breathing easily under the watchful eye of paramedics, stirred and blinked up at her mother, alive, whole. Elira approached slowly, giving them space. Some reunions weren't meant to be interrupted. Amber saw her, and in a heartbeat, crossed the distance between them. Tears streamed down her face, but this time, they weren't carved from fear. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking, "for not giving up, for listening, when no one else did." Elira shook her head, her voice soft but certain. "You need to thank him." She glanced down. Ace sat poised at her side, ears perked, golden eyes catching the faint shimmer of streetlights. Amber knelt, cradling Madison closer with one arm as she extended the other. Open, trembling. Ace stepped forward, slow, deliberate, and pressed his nose gently into her palm. Madison let out a soft coo, tiny fingers curling into Ace's fur. A breathless hush fell over the small circle. A connection. Raw, wordless, healing. Not every hero wears a badge. Not every miracle shouts. Some arrive, silent, steadfast, on four paws, and refuse to let go. The parking lot emptied slowly, one car after another disappearing into the night, leaving behind only faint echoes of sirens and distant headlights fading into darkness. Elira leaned against her SUV, Ace lying at her feet, eyes half closed, breathing steady, the calm after the storm. For a long moment, neither moved. There was no need for words. The kind of battles they fought left marks too deep for simple sentences. Elira ran a hand through Ace's thick fur, grounding herself in the quiet strength he radiated. How many times had he saved her? How many invisible storms had he seen before she ever did? The mall still loomed behind them, glittering, oblivious, like nothing had changed. But Elira knew better. Some battles ended without fanfare. Some victories came wrapped in silence. A tap on her window broke the moment. Marlo stood there, her tired face softening into something almost gentle. "The hospital called," she said quietly. "Madison's going to be fine. Full recovery." Elira nodded once, her throat tight, heart swelling with a fragile kind of relief that didn't need fireworks. Marlo hesitated, then added, "You should know. The lab tested that second bottle." Elira braced, feeling Ace stiffen subtly against her leg. It was laced with sedatives, heavy ones. Wrong dose could have stopped her heart. Silence fell, heavy as lead. Ace shifted closer, pressing into Elira's side without needing to be asked. They had come so close, closer than anyone had realized. But tonight, for one small life, they had made all the difference. Later, much later, Elira sat on the back bumper of her SUV, the night folding around her like an old familiar coat. Ace rested his massive head in her lap, eyes closed but senses still quietly humming beneath the surface. Always ready, always watching. The mall lights shimmered in the distance, a false kind of brightness that didn't quite reach the parking lot's edges. Elira ran her fingers through Ace's fur, slow, steady, grounding herself in the one truth tonight had made crystal clear. Trust isn't built in noise, it's built in silences, in instincts you don't question, in moments when everyone else hesitates, and you move. Some would say it was luck that saved Madison. Some would say it was coincidence, but Elira knew better. It was the kind of luck you forged over years of battles no one saw. Midnight terrors, hospital corridors, shattered breath held between life and death. It was the kind of miracle that walked on four legs, carrying faith heavier than any metal. She thought of Chloe, of bitterness so heavy it had twisted into cruelty, of how small acts, unnoticed, could spiral into avalanches. And she thought of Ace, steadfast, silent, pulling her back from those cliffs every time. A soft breeze stirred, carrying the scent of cold asphalt, faded flowers, and something cleaner underneath. Hope, not loud, not grand, but real and stubborn enough to survive. Elira closed her eyes, just for a moment, letting herself believe. Maybe that was enough. Tonight it had to be. Morning crept over the horizon, slow, reluctant, painting the sky in bruised shades of blue and gold. Elira sat behind the wheel, Ace curled up on the seat beside her, his breathing deep, rhythmic, safe. For a while she didn't start the engine. There are nights that change you, not with violence, but with quiet, irreversible weight. This had been one of them. She thought of the chain of small decisions that had led here. A bark ignored could have meant a life lost. A moment of doubt could have cost everything. Trust your dog. It wasn't just a rule etched into training manuals. It was a truth, blood deep and soul deep, built across countless invisible battles. Not because dogs were infallible, but because loyalty untainted by ego saw things we sometimes refuse to see. Ace stirred, sensing her thoughts, his muzzle nudging her elbow gently, grounding her again. Elira smiled faintly, that aching, grateful kind of smile. Some heroes wore vests and badges, some bore scars no one else could see, and some simply stayed. Stayed when it was hardest, stayed when no one else understood why it mattered. She reached over, resting her palm over Ace's heart. It beat strong beneath her fingers. A reminder, a vow. Whatever storms still waited out there, they would face them the same way they always had, together, without fear, without doubt, without ever looking away again. Not all battles are fought with noise and fire. Some, the ones that matter most, are fought quietly, in choices no one else sees, in moments when trust whispers louder than fear. Tonight, a life was saved not by luck, but by a bond unseen. A bond forged in silence, sharpened in hardship, and tested when it mattered most. Illyra didn't need medals or headlines to know what Ace had done. She could feel it, in the steadiness of his breathing, the quiet gravity of his gaze. A dog didn't ask for recognition. A dog didn't chase glory. He simply stood when standing was hardest. He simply believed when doubt would have been easier. And sometimes, that was enough to change the ending. As the first true rays of dawn stretched across the sky, Illyra smiled, a soft, worn-in kind of smile, and finally started the engine. The world rolled forward, but they would carry this night, this story with them, always. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters here more than you know. And if you believe in the silent, steadfast heroes walking beside us every day, feel free to subscribe and join our little corner of hope. No pressure, just presence. We're grateful you're here. Life lessons from this story. Sometimes the battles that shape us aren't loud. They don't come with fanfare or clear villains. They come quietly, in moments when the world moves too fast to notice. But someone does. Tonight wasn't just about saving a life. It was about trust, the kind built in silence, in loyalty without question. It was about believing, even when logic said to doubt, about standing still, when every voice told you to move on. Ace didn't save Madison because he was trained to. He saved her because he chose to trust something deeper, a bond invisible to the eye, but unshakable to the soul. And maybe that's what real heroism is. Not grand gestures, not medals, just being there, unwavering, when it matters most. In a world that often measures worth by noise and speed, maybe it's the quiet faith, the silent presence that saves us in the end. Maybe that's the kind of love that endures long after the noise fades, and maybe that's enough.